Good morning. My name is Brian Hastings. I'm the Chief Patrol Agent here in the Rio Grande Valley. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. This is a momentous occasion not only for RGV sector, but for our nation's border security and national security as a whole. I'd like to begin by thanking Acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf, Acting CBP Commissioner Mark Morgan, CBP Deputy Commissioner Robert Perez, Border Patrol Chief Rodney Scott, Army Corps of Engineers Director for the Southwest Division, Pete Perez, for their attendance here today. RGV sector continues to be the busiest sector in the nation. During fiscal year 2019, we apprehended over 339,000 people and seized over 127,000 pounds of narcotics. During last fiscal year, RGV accounted for over 22% of all Border Patrol arrests and over 42% of all Border Patrol narcotic seizures. So far this fiscal year, RGV is accounting for over 26% of all Border Patrol arrests and again, over 42% of all Border Patrol narcotic seizures. I just want to take a moment to thank our Border Patrol agents for their hard work, dedication, and the work that they do day after day to protect this nation. Today we're standing in front of a new segment of border wall system that is already helping RGV achieve operational control over an area that has historically been very difficult to secure. Nearly 10 years ago, the installation of border wall and technology in our eastern corridor near Brownsville, Texas, significantly reduced illegal border crossings and narcotic trafficking. RGV agents have seen firsthand that walls work. After installing wall in the eastern corridor, illegal activity moved to the west, encompassing this very area where we stand today. In response, we put a plan together to help secure these areas through the construction of new border wall system. Today, the men and women working tirelessly in the RGV sector are very pleased to see these plans coming to fruition. At this time, it is my pleasure and my honor to invite Acting DHS Secretary, Mr. Chad Wolf, to the podium. Mr. Secretary.
Well, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Chief Hastings, appreciate those comments and the introduction. Thank you all for joining us today to celebrate this historic occasion for American border security. Today, we can confidently say that our border is more secure now than at any time in our history. I want to again begin by recognizing the steadfast leadership of President Trump. Without the President's vision and dedication, we would not be here today to celebrate the construction of nearly 400 miles of new state-of-the-art border wall system. I want to thank Acting Commissioner Mark Morgan for his leadership and dedication to the mission of CBP. I also want to acknowledge Deputy Commissioner Bob Perez, Chief of the Border Patrol Rodney Scott, and others behind me. It's truly a pleasure to serve with this outstanding team. And the American people owe you and every man and woman of the CBP gratitude for the work you do every day to secure our borders. Our colleagues at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for their tremendous efforts to help construct the border wall system. And finally, let me thank all the hardworking men and women of all of our wall contractors. You are all patriots, and you deserve the recognition of this administration. Today's event is a testament to fulfilling the promises President Trump made to the American people nearly 4 years ago to secure our borders and to reform a broken immigration system. When evaluating our progress and how we got to this point in time, I believe it's important to acknowledge all of the challenges that were before us for more than 3 years ago. Simply put, we inherited a broken and outdated border security and immigration system. The system did not fully provide the men and women of DHS and CBP the resources and tools they required, and it incentivized and facilitated the smuggling and trafficking of illegal aliens into the country, where they were released into the interior and absconded without consequence. President Trump has stated on many occasions that a country without strong border security and without a functioning immigration system that helps those in need while rooting out fraud and abuse is in fact no country at all. So the department got to work, and our results speak for themselves. Over the past 3.5 years, we've reached historic agreements with our Northern Triangle partners and with the government of Mexico to stem illegal immigration. We implemented the Migrant Protection Protocols, which ensures a safer and more orderly process along our southwest border, discourages individuals from making meritorious asylum claims, non-meritorious asylum claims, and enables quick immigration results. We have suspended asylum for individuals who traverse through a safe third country where they could seek asylum but simply choose not to do so. And we have expanded programs to fast-track the asylum review process. We've directed DHS law enforcement officers to no longer exempt classes of removable aliens from enforcement action, reversing a dangerous policy from the last administration. We uncovered massive fraud that victimized children and made them part of fraudulent families to take advantage of loopholes in our immigration system. We ended the destructive practice of catch and release. Think about this. In fiscal year 2019, DHS released nearly 500,000 individuals into the country. But after making policy and operational changes, those numbers have dropped off the cliff. In FY20, that number was down to 15,000. 500,000, 15,000, a 90% decrease. And those that were released were largely released on humanitarian grounds. And working closely with the CDC, we have prohibited the introduction of illegal aliens during the COVID-19 pandemic. Holding illegal aliens in congregate settings would have been a public health catastrophe of historic proportions. Because of this order, CBP is able to return approximately 90% of individuals who would otherwise be kept in CBP facilities back to Mexico or their home country within 2 hours. There is no doubt that this administration's COVID-related measures here at the border continues to save American lives. This leads us to the prioritization, the funding, and the construction of an effective border wall system. The wall system is a critical component of the department-wide, multi-layered strategy we have implemented to secure our border. After years of neglect, we drastically improved our nation's ability to protect the American people from drug smugglers, gang members, and other criminals who seek to destroy our communities and our way of life. Since President Trump took decisive action and declared the national security and humanitarian crisis that unfolded last year what it was, a national emergency, we have constructed the wall with unprecedented speed. In January, we reached 100 miles. In June, we reached 200 miles. In August, we reached 300 miles. And today, I'm proud to stand before you, along with the men and women of CBP and the Army Corps of Engineers, to celebrate the construction of nearly 400 miles of new border wall system. And while this is an important milestone, we're building even more wall. Currently, we have nearly 210 more miles under construction and expect to complete 450 miles by the end of this calendar year. Most reasonable Americans understand the need for an effective border wall system in targeted, high-priority locations. And while some politicians and members of the press continue to question the need of a border wall system for political reasons, its effectiveness is without question. Where the wall goes up, the number of illegal crossings and crime goes down. Put simply, walls work. And our Border Patrol agents know this. But perhaps most importantly, the criminals know this. Here in RGV, our Border Patrol agents observed that human smugglers are changing their tactics due to the new border wall system and are attempting to cross through areas that are easier to surveil. In Zone 1 here in RGV, we've seen a 26% decrease in narcotic seizures since the start of the border wall system construction. In Yuma sector, illegal entries in the areas with the border wall system decreased by 87% in FY20 compared to FY19. In Tucson sector, narcotic seizures decreased between ports of entry between FY19 and FY20 thanks to the capabilities provided to our Border Patrol agents of the wall system. And overall, drug seizures in Tucson sector are down 25%. Over the past 4 years, because each new mile of border wall system pushes criminals and the cartels to ports of entries and other areas that are easier to surveil, DHS has seized more than 4 million pounds of hard drugs like fentanyl, cocaine, and methamphetamines, which is almost double the annualized amount of drugs seized between 2019 and 2017. But if you're still not convinced, consider the following. In areas where the new border wall system is being deployed, we will Border Patrol will be able to redeploy thousands of Border Patrol agents per year to other areas of need. In areas where the new border wall system has been deployed, we now decide where border crossings take place, not the cartels and not the smugglers. Again, the wall system allows our agents to pick their battleground by forcing smugglers, traffickers, and other criminals to pass through areas that are easier to surveil or through ports of entry where we have resources and personnel there to interdict. The wall has provided our Border Patrol agents increased situational awareness, improved access and mobility, and additional time to detect and apprehend individuals attempting to enter the country illegally. In urban areas, the border wall system mitigates illegal border crossers' ability to quickly vanish into public settings and improves the effectiveness and efficiency of agent response. Now, I understand that our critics have policy differences regarding the construction of the border wall system. And while I appreciate those concerns, everything that we have accomplished to date has been within our legal authority and has been vindicated by the courts. We look forward to continued dialogue with all of our stakeholders. But at the end of the day, we will continue to build the wall system, as this is an issue of national and Homeland Security. The progress we are celebrating here did not happen by accident. The many miles of border wall system exist because of the will and the vision of President Trump and the dedication and hard work of the men and women of CBP and the Army Corps of Engineers. As we stand here today, it's important that we don't lose sight of the challenges we overcame to keep this important promise. Whether it was pushback from our critics in Congress, impediments from the courts, or outright lies in the press, we have prevailed. In 2017, the Washington Post ran a headline, "Sorry, Trump voter, you got scammed. You're never going to get your wall." In September 2018, the LA Times ran a headline, "I promise Trump can't keep. His window to build the wall is closing." In 2019, Speaker Pelosi said that President Trump has not built any new wall. Not only has the media and our critics been proven wrong, but they've been proven wrong 400 times and counting. If you take a look at the headlines today, they'll tell a very different story. Even our most ardent critics recognize that the wall is being built. And under this administration, we will continue to build even more wall because it's very simple. A border wall system is effective. A border wall system saves lives. A border wall system protects our national sovereignty. Again, in short, walls work. Unfortunately, this criticism isn't surprising, nor is it unique. Many of these same critics have been critical of law enforcement in recent months, wanting to cut funding and branding all law enforcement officials as racist. In fact, it was just over 3 months ago when Speaker Pelosi described DHS law enforcement officers to include CBP officers, many like are standing behind me today, as stormtroopers. An absolutely disgraceful remark. It's time to put politics aside and support our law enforcement and our Border Patrol officers. The wall system is fundamentally a national security asset, critical to the efforts of thousands of Border Patrol agents working tirelessly to secure our border. If you are against the wall, you are against the men and women of the Border Patrol. It's really that simple. Without the wall system and the vast array of the immigration policies this administration has implemented, our border would be less secure, less orderly, and more ineffective in dealing with the cartels and the criminal organizations. Unfortunately, the men and women of the Border Patrol have seen that reality. It was a short time ago in 2019 that we were in the midst of a national security and humanitarian crisis here on the border. During this time, for several months, more than 100,000 illegal aliens crossed into our borders and were released into our communities. While the Trump administration took decisive action, leading to a drop in numbers throughout the late 2019 and early 2020, those numbers are beginning to increase once again. Illegal immigration is trending up over this time last year, and if current trends hold, October could likely be one of the highest months of illegal crossings in some time. The only reason we haven't reached another crisis is because of the policy and procedures this administration has put into place over the last several years, including the construction of an effective border wall system. It's plain to see These measures protect Americans because they work and because they are effective. Abolishing these measures or reversing course is absolutely no way forward. But that's precisely what some of our critics are proposing. They want to block the removal of criminal aliens. They would like to resume catch and release. They would like to return to a broken asylum system. They would like to walk away from historic international agreements. They would like to stop construction and actually dismantle the effective border wall system that you see today. So these are not only bad policies, these are dangerous policies. And let me be crystal clear, each of the measures would endanger the lives of the Border Patrol and Americans across this country. Public safety should not be a political issue. As long as I'm leading the men and women of DHS, I will continue to put the safety of American people ahead of politics. Before I conclude, let me again thank President Trump for prioritizing the border wall system and for supporting the men and women of DHS and CBP as we work every single day to secure our homeland. Our journey to 400 miles certainly has not been easy. We have seen more than our fair share of unwarranted criticism, and we have had to manage several impediments along the way. But I am proud of the work that we have accomplished and will continue to accomplish. Promises were made and promises were kept. As I've mentioned earlier, there's still work to be done, and DHS, along with our partners, will not rest until we have finished the job. As the old saying goes, many hands make light work. And so I would ask all of our political leaders, the media, the American people, to continue to support us as we build this border wall system. We are performing this important work on behalf of all Americans, and we deeply appreciate the support as we work to secure our borders in our homeland. Let me turn it over to Acting Commissioner Morgan, who will continue to talk about the successes we've had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I could not agree more with every single word you said. And to be quite honest, I'm not sure I can expand on that adequately. But what I would like to do is talk about something that happened yesterday. In fact, what I did is, as we started to prepare for this acknowledgement of an incredible milestone of 400 miles of wall system being complete, I sent out something that I do all the time. I sent out a tweet emphasizing the very comment that the Secretary has just made for us all. How this wall system, it's an essential part of a decades-long, multifaceted strategy of infrastructure, technology, and personnel. How everywhere that multi-layered strategy is utilized, CBP's operational capacity to secure our borders and protect American people is exponentially expanded. As the Secretary mentioned, the wall system, one of many tools that allows us to dictate this ground, to dictate where the smugglers go, not where they want to go. My tweet intended to educate the American people that borders matter and the great things done by the men and women of CBP and DHS as a whole. My tweet was intended to emphasize that border security is national security. And the tweet was similar to hundreds and hundreds of tweets that I've sent over the past couple of years. But none of you today got to see that tweet. Americans across this great country didn't get to see that tweet or the very critical information that was contained in that tweet. Because Twitter, they removed that tweet and they locked my account yesterday. And I'd like to take a moment to talk about that tweet. The tweet basically read that walls absolutely are an important part of a multi-layer strategy that assist the men and women of CBP to apprehend criminals. That's what my tweet said. And Twitter took the tweet down. Ironically, as they're having a hearing on Capitol Hill on this very issue, Twitter employees were actively censoring another administration official. This should outrage every American citizen because they didn't lock me out. They locked you out. They imposed their own ideology, their own belief system to justify keeping the truth from the American people because it didn't fit the very obvious and transparent agenda. They may have locked my Twitter account, but they're not going to lock my voice. So let me unlock the truth that Twitter has tried to lock. And let me start with a chart. And I'd be more than happy, anyone here can have this information. In fact, I may just send this out in a tweet. Last year, FY20, Border Patrol alone had almost 2,500 apprehensions for criminals. And it ran the gamut from assault, battery, burglary, homicide, illegal drug possession, illegal entry, illegal weapon possession, sexual offenses. The list goes on and on. CBP-wide, almost 9,000 criminals that we apprehended trying to make their way illegally into this country. So with all due respect, Twitter, you're locking my account doesn't pass the BS test. And let me give you a couple other tweets that I've sent out that for some reason that was okay. This month alone, in this fiscal year, just in October, I've sent out several tweets. I'd be more than happy to give everyone a screenshot of this, where in October alone, we Border Patrol apprehended multiple sex offenders from California, Arizona, Texas, New York. Right here in Texas, we apprehended a convicted pedophile that had been convicted for having sex with a minor. So it's true and it's accurate and it's factual. I've got the Twitter, and I'll give you the screenshot of where Border Patrol apprehended a convicted murderer. I've got a screenshot again where we apprehended a gang member, and that's just within the past 30 days. You know, it's ironic to me that for some reason, if the Ayatollah tweets out for the full and complete destruction of Israel, somehow that's okay. But me tweeting out about how effective the wall is and how it absolutely helps us apprehend criminals that try to illegally enter this country, somehow that is hate speech. That's absurd. And like I said, that doesn't pass the BS test. So, thank you, Mr. Secretary, for indulging me to talk about that. So, look, let me also say as simply as I can. The wall system that we're looking at right now, it works. And here's one thing that we don't talk enough about. If you ask the men and women of Green, what they'll say and what they've been saying for a very long time, one of the main features of the wall system is it acts as an effective impedance denial tool. It's an integral part of that multi-layer strategy of infrastructure, technology, and personnel. And quite frankly, I kind of added something to something as massive as this, something that's being built right now, just simply because of the sheer size. It also acts as an effective deterrence tool as well. That means individuals trying to illegally enter, including the list of criminals I just provided. Look, it's not complicated. It slows them down. If you ask Border Patrol agents that are working in an urban area where sometimes the border is separated just by maybe 60 yards and there's communities on both sides. If there's not any system, no barrier that's there to impede and deny, they can illegally enter within 60 seconds. All the technology in the world is not going to apprehend that individual that takes seconds to go across the border and illegally enter and blend in and disappear into the community. But with the wall system, at times, it slows them down just enough that the Border Patrol agents can respond and apprehend them. That's the truth, and that's effective. And we've been using, here's another just unbelievable false narrative. We've been using effective barriers for a very, very long time. We're just building them better now. That's what we're doing. We're not just building them better now. What we're doing, it's much more than just steel and concrete going in the ground. As the Secretary talked about, it's a system. It's got access roads. This road that we're standing on right now, this access road is very key. In fact, if you ask some Border Patrol agents in some areas, they'll tell you, hey, you know what? I'd actually rather have the access road than actually steel and concrete because it's that critical for them to get to where they need to be. Well, luckily, they don't have to make that choice because with the wall system, they get it all. They get an amazing amount of steel and concrete, the access road, integrated lighting, and state-of-the-art technology that infuse artificial intelligence or machine learning into the systems. And those attributes is what makes the wall system the game changer that it is. And this president has given us so much more than just tools like the wall system. As the Secretary mentioned, the network of policies and initiatives, like MPP. Look, let's be straight. MPP was the driving factor that drove the end of catch and release. Through these network of initiatives and policies and tools, we've been able to regain the integrity back into the immigration system. We've been able to close numerous loopholes being exploited by the smugglers and, quite frankly, the migrants themselves. And as Congress failed the American people and sat on their hands and let the crisis pass them by, when they could have taken action in 15 minutes to end this crisis, this president's strategy has absolutely been incredibly successful. And the Secretary mentioned in FY19, almost 5,000 illegal aliens we had to release in the United States because of the broken system. CBP in FY19 alone, 230,000. In FY20, we went from 230,000 to about 1,000. Talk about a game changer. Illegal immigration flow was reduced from the height in May of last year to February of this year by 75%. We went from having 20,000 individuals in custody to right now we average about 1,000. Families from northern Triangle countries and unaccompanied minors, which really was driving the majority of the crisis, we reduced from the height by 87% by this February. It's simply been astounding. Overall, year to year, from FY19 to FY20, we reduced the overall flow by over 50%. And as the Secretary mentioned, as a direct result of this president and this administration, this is not a political statement. It's just a matter of fact. We have a stronger relationship with the government of Mexico and our partner countries in the Northern Triangle countries than we ever have before. Every single day we're working with them. Every single day they have joined us as true partners to address this as the regional crisis that it is. And then COVID. As the Secretary mentioned, look, we had to shift quickly from an immigration enforcement posture to a public health posture because of COVID. And this president took a quick and decisive action. And I think everybody understands we took the action in the air environment. But what a lot of people don't understand is that same decisive action happened at our land POEs, where we reduced to non-essential travel. But it also happened in between the ports of entry for those trying to illegally enter under the policy of the CDC order, or known as Title 42. And I want to foot stomp what the Secretary said, because I couldn't agree more strongly, is that those decisive actions, without a doubt, saved countless American lives. And by the way, the 400 miles of wall system, there's another false narrative out there that what has it done for COVID? I tell you what, it's made a considerable difference in COVID. Again, the wall system, just as I tried to send out in the tweet that Twitter blocked and locked me out, what I was trying to educate the American people is the wall system absolutely has enhanced the Border Patrol's ability to apprehend people trying to illegally enter this country, including in the middle of a global pandemic. Every single individual trying to illegally this country, we don't know where they've traveled. We don't know what their medical history is. More than likely, they've been stuffed in a crowded, unsanitary stash house. Every single illegal alien that we encounter and we prevent from illegally entering this country as a potential walking COVID case that could potentially infect American lives. And this wall system has helped with that. Now, look, I think I want to end with something that the Secretary ended with as well. I'm going to be absolutely direct. And it's important for everyone to understand that the effective tools like the wall system and the network of policies that's been described that enhances our capability to safeguard borders. Should these tools and policies be removed or stopped, you will see version 2.0 of catch and release. It will immediately be back in business full swing. You will re-incentivize and drive another massive illegal migration flow. If you stop building the wall, you will remove an effective and essential tool. If your immigration policy supports the ongoing protection provided to illegal aliens by sanctuary cities, as well as reward those same immigrants who remain in the country illegally with free health care, your strategy will be clear. It will be one that includes release, protection, and reward. Think about that. If you illegally entered the United States, and history will show, if you somehow make it to our borders, and if you know you're going to be released, and then once you're released and you remain here illegally, you're going to be protected from removal. And then once you're here, released and protected from removal, then you're going to receive incredible rewards at taxpayers' expense. Why wouldn't you come? It's not complicated. It's common sense. The truth is, any strategies which pillars consist of release, protection, and reward won't just drive another massive and unprecedented illegal crisis. It will drive an illegal invasion. 1 million illegal aliens we saw in FY19 could very well pale in comparison to what we saw. And look, I'd like to close by giving, instead of listening to, the talking heads, I'd like to take just a moment to have a seasoned, experienced Border Patrol agent come up and speak his own words on what he thinks about this wall system. So with that, Herman.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. My name is Herman Rivera, and I've have the good fortune of being in law enforcement for the last 26 years. Originally started in San Diego sector, Brownfield Station. At that time, in 1994, it was the busiest sector in the country. We apprehended thousands of people daily at that time. We had wall or border fence there. I got to see the initial creation of a border wall system that greatly dwindled the amount of people that were attempting to cross into this country illegally. Fast forward, 20 years later, where we're at today, you just happen to be in one of the busiest areas in the country for illegal apprehensions and attempted legal entries. As of late, with this construction of this new border wall here, the numbers have really dwindled almost to a minimum. So now the smugglers who operate in this area have to shift their operations. So it's made our job a lot easier. We're able to move our traffic or our agents to areas to apprehend these people. With that being said, the system you see here in place right now is, in my words, I think I can speak for a lot of agents, is beautiful because it's going to do its job. It's designed to move this traffic to where we're able to manage this traffic. The amount of people that normally cross through here, we've apprehended a lot of criminals, and I know that for a fact. And this right here is a big part of the reason why we're able to catch them, because like the people that I've mentioned before, it impedes the flow of traffic. We're able to respond from greater distance faster, and it gives us that just enough time or buffer, if you will, to apprehend these people. But in closing, I'd like to rest assured the American people that walls really do work. They give us a better chance to do our job efficiently and have a better chance of catching people who are trying to come into this country. Thank you.
Great. We'll open it up to a few questions. If you do have a question, please identify your name and who you are with. In the blue. Thank you. Sorry, you're going to have to speak up. Thank you. Sure. Let me turn it over to Rodney Scott, Chief of our Border Patrol, but there is an effectiveness reason on why you would paint it black, and it's for the Border Patrol so that they're able to better identify folks and have that contrast. But Rodney, let me have you address that.
Thank you. You will notice that the wall right behind us is painted. There's a couple other sections along the border as well. In some of our initial testing out in the field, the ability of agents to identify movement behind that wall has changed based on the paint color. There's another section of wall that's actually not solid black in another part of the country, very specific to that area, to be able to highlight movement behind it. We're continuing to work through it, and each different environment is slightly different, but I can tell you that the specific paint is for exactly that, to pick up what's behind it so there's better contrast so we can see movement behind it so the agents can respond quicker. I won't get into all the technology, but there's some specific technology issues as well with the AI and with some cameras where it makes it significantly easier to identify movement. No, I did not say the entire border would be painted that color. We're still in the process of figuring out where it's appropriate and where it is not. So right now where we're painting it is a pilot test, if you will, and it changes based on the technology, but it also changes based on the background.
Yep. Well, President Trump has been able to secure funding for about 730, a little over 730 miles of border wall system. Obviously, we're at 400 today, 450 by the end of the year. Look, I think you heard it from Border Patrol, specifically the acting commissioner. This is an effective tool for the men and women of Border Patrol. These are the folks that put on a uniform every day, put on a badge, they're trying to protect American communities, trying to protect illegal aliens, in some cases criminals, from coming into this country. We need to listen to them. It's exactly what President Trump did early on. What do you need to do your job? And he listened to the agents, he listened to the officers here on the ground. We'll continue to do that. I hope that anyone that is in charge of DHS or Border Patrol in the years to come, whenever they are, listen to the men and women on the ground. What are the tools that you need? As I often say, we give our men and women in uniform the very best tools to fight our adversaries overseas. There's absolutely no reason that we shouldn't do that for the men and women of the Border Patrol when they're protecting our country here at home. So that's how I would answer that. Next question. Sorry, you're going to have to speak up just a little bit. Yep. Rodney, you want that? Okay. Sure. Let me ask the Corps of Engineers to address that one.
Hi, Pete Perez with the Corps of Engineers. When we look at our design lives for structures just like this, we work in concert with our partners. We make sure that we use the latest technology and understanding of the materials that are going into this wall to ensure that it lasts 30 to 50 years as for the performance of the wall. And obviously there are regular recurrent maintenance that will be required, but that is something that we'll work with our CBP partners on to maintain the effectiveness of the wall. That's what I think.
Mark, you want to address that? Sure, I'll let Commissioner Morgan talk specifically. The President, again, as I indicated, has secured about $15 billion. That'll give you about a little over 730 miles of wall. So we'll continue to look at that, continue to look at what are the high priority locations. And again, CBP has done great work on where those locations can be. Again, high traffic areas, making sure that we're pushing those criminal organizations, those cartels into areas that we want them to cross on our own terms. So we'll continue to do that. But I'll let Mark address the overall costs.
Thanks, sir. And Chief, jump in here if you want. So I appreciate the question, and sometimes there's a lot of confusion. So we have what's called a BSIP, a Border Security Implementation Plan, and we re-look at that annually. And what that border security, the BSIP plan, gives us is and identifies where those strategic miles are at that given time. And that BSEP really includes a really robust set of criteria that we send out to the field, to the chief patrol agents, and we ask for their input. And based on the input, it goes back to headquarters, and then we collectively do an analysis to determine where those strategic miles are. And as the Secretary said, that's one of the first things the President had asked, where do you need it and how much? And that's why we gave him, and that's really where we originally came up with the 450 miles that we need in strategic locations at that time. But here's the important part of that. Again, as the Secretary's mentioned, they're cartels. I say kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it's really true. They could teach a class at Harvard on business resiliency and agility. And so as we get better, as we implement new tools, and not just the wall system, but technology, guess what they do? They shift. It wasn't that long ago when San Diego was the high traffic area, and then Tucson was the high traffic area, and now it's RGV. So with each mile of wall system that goes in place, with each new technology that we have that's implemented and goes in place, that threat and those priorities change as the cartels change. So it's not a static one-time only document. It's a living, breathing document that has to shift based on the cartels and smugglers changing their routes and their threat as well. Did I get anything? Did I miss anything?
I would just add one quick point specifically to some of the OIG criticisms. We have a prioritized list, and I won't get into a lot of detail on that, but there were, say, priority number 5 or number 7 that I chose to skip and build somewhere else, because this is a whole very complicated network approach. So there were times we looked at real estate issues, and even though that was a higher priority for the U.S. Border Patrol to create impedance there, which is what the wall is, we elected to go ahead and shift down to a lower priority because I could make a difference there, and then take those resources, human resources, agents, and technology, and shift them into another area where I was going to have more challenges building a wall. I believe, I won't get into OIG specific, I believe if they would have done a little bit more homework and asked some more questions, they would cover those aspects, and I think that's doing due diligence to the taxpayers and giving back a return on their investment.
Thanks, Chief. Right. Sure, I'll take those in order. So we talked about 400 miles. Every mile is a new mile of new border wall system. Because again, as we talked about, it's not only the steel that you see here, but it's the capabilities that it provides the Border Patrol. So these are capabilities that they have not had. So when you have the whole wall system there, obviously you have the impedance and denial, the actual infrastructure itself. You have the camera, you have the lighting, you have the roads, you have the sensors. It's all of that that gives Border Patrol capability that they have never had before. So if you are replacing a 4-foot high vehicle barrier that doesn't have any of that, that doesn't prevent any illegal crossing, pedestrian crossings coming over, and you provide a 30-foot steel bollard wall system with all of those capabilities, that is a new mile of border wall system. So to answer your question, we have 400 new miles of border wall system. Regarding your question about the children and the announcement today, I would just say, again, this is over a 2-year-old case that obviously the department, along with HHS, along with the Department of Justice, has been engaged in. And I just want to be clear, because I think there's some miscommunication. When we talk about locating children, the ACLU specifically, as the court has directed, they are the ones locating these individuals, again, in their home country. So obviously DHS, HHS, we provide all the information that we can. But at the end of the day, it's their job to contact that, and that's the way that they want it to be. Of the ones that we have located, that they have been in communication with, there's not one that I know of today that has been contacted, whether it's in the Northern Triangle or elsewhere, and their child's here, that has been asked to be reunited with their child back in their home country. Not one. They have decided to separate themselves from their children, leaving their children here as they are back in their home country. And I think that's an important point. Again, we'll continue to work with the court. We'll continue to work with the ACLU and other NGOs that are involved in this, making sure that we provide all that information and they contact that. But I think it's telling because, again, the ACLU said, I think just a few days ago, And I think they acknowledge that no parents in their home countries have decided or elected to have their children rejoin them. What they have said is they would like their parents to rejoin their children here in the United States. Again, they have no legal right to be here. They have come in illegally. They were removed mainly through expedited removal, which is an authority given to the Department, to the Border Patrol, by Congress. In some cases, if they have expressed a fear, they have gone before an immigration judge who has ruled they do not have a fear claim, and they have been removed. So they have had due process. This idea that they do not have due process is not accurate at all. So thank you.
Mr. Secretary, could I add something about the wall real quick? I'd just like to add a little bit to the wall question. So let's be honest here, right? So the critics had said first we were never going to build the wall, and all of a sudden we started building the wall, and they had to shift their narrative to that. That's just absurd. Just like the Secretary said, I'll give you a quick story. 'Cause if we're all honest with each other, right, and with ourselves, if you've got an old, dilapidated car at home that's 20 years old and it's about to give out on you, and you go that weekend and you buy a brand new car, and your buddy asks you that weekend, what'd you do? What do you tell him? Honestly, you tell him you bought a replacement car, or you tell him you bought a brand new car? It's a brand new wall.
Hold on. Let me get around to others that may have a question before I come back. So apologies, I do not speak Spanish, but I know a couple of folks up here, or perhaps we have a translator nearby. Hold on, we've got.
Why hasn't there been touted the benefit of, from the Mexican point of view, of how the wall also has helped the preventing of southbound, particularly illicit currency and proceeds?
Why don't you address it?
Yeah. So I'm gonna answer it in English just to make sure that I precisely answer it. Yeah. So the way I understood the question is, the benefit from both, not just the U.S. but the Mexican side. So as you heard from the Commissioner Secretary earlier, the cooperation we've had with the government of Mexico has been absolutely unprecedented over the last 18 to 24 months. The collaboration we have, including the movement of illicit currencies and firearms southbound into Mexico, is something that we've done at an unprecedented level throughout the entirety of the southwest border, from South Texas all the way to California. So to answer your question, yes, the border wall is an absolutely effective tool for us to move our resources and put them exactly where we need them to be to better interdict not just the illicit currencies, but also southbound weapons that, as we know, are helping fuel a lot of the transnational criminal violence that is occurring to our neighbors to the south.
Down here on the end. So I dismissed that. Obviously, I was here when we did 100 miles. I'm not sure if you were. I was here when we did 200 miles. So we do these events quite frequently down here along the southwest border. I think this notion that the department cannot talk about what it does from a law enforcement perspective of what we're trying to do to keep criminal aliens out of communities, to keep criminal aliens, illegal aliens out of our country, that somehow within, let's pick a number, 4 months before an election, that we are supposed to stop communicating to the American people and not, again, communicate what we do every day and the results of what we do every day, I think is absurd. You will see everything that we have said in the past, and we'll continue to promote the good work that the men and women are doing, again, not only here on the border, but when we talk about, I think the first part of your question was more about sanctuary cities. I've been on record, I've done multiple events, whether it's in North Carolina, wherever it might be, talking about the harmful policies of sanctuary city policies. We'll continue to promote that. The first Operation Rise jurisdictions that we talked about were California. So again, specifically to your question, as far as I know, California is not a battleground state. But yet that was the first set of results that we articulated and that we talked about. We'll do one more question. Anyone? Yep. Sorry. Chief, you want that one? Or you want that? Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to the operational folks down here for you.
So I'll keep that one simple. From a U.S. Border Patrol standpoint, we didn't ask any private company outside of the ACE process, of the Army Corps of Engineers process, to build any wall down here. We are very, very cautious when we build any infrastructure, whether it be a site for cameras or a wall, that it takes all the environmental issues into consideration, that it takes into consideration specifically here the floodplain. So the only projects that the United States Border Patrol is involved in are with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they're very well thought out in their design. I can't speak to what any private individual or private company chooses to do on their own land. I did not have any discussion with them personally.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Mark.